Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Falber, and I am one of the career counselors. And today we're going to work on or have a little presentation on resumes in a virtual work environment. So I am working from home, and I am having a few technical difficulties. Here we go. So I want to let you know also that my hours are not only Thursday from 9 to 4, but they are Wednesday from 9 to 2. And welcome everybody. Please bear with me with any glitches, as there are already. There is a chat function. I'm actually not sure if I can see that, Wendy, in what I've done, but I'm just going to get started.
Perfect.
Okay. So, So right now we're in a very different economic climate than we were even a month ago, 2 months ago. And there's definitely an economic shift. And a lot of students are probably thinking, this is a little bit of a crazy time. But there are companies that are hiring. So I want to let you know that the people who get hired during these economic shifts are those who don't stop the job search. And instead, they keep on going. They keep working on their documents. They keep working on networking. They keep brushing up on their skills. So those are the people who actually get the jobs. Don't wait. You need to be regular and consistent because it's sort of a numbers game. The more that you do, the more likely that something can come from it. And although I'm talking about resumes in a virtual world today, the traditional elements of a resume still really apply. There are just some additions that you might want to think about. So the job search might get a little bit more competitive. It might slow down in certain aspects. It might speed up in certain aspects. But this really, as I said, is a good time to brush up on things. I'm sorry, I'm not getting down. So the traditional elements of a resume still apply. What I'm going to give you now is a very condensed version of all the things and basics about resumes. So please schedule an appointment on Starfish. But for the most part, I'll just give you the basics. A resume is a marketing tool. It is your advertisement that you are going to show the employer all of your skills and why they should hire you from all of the other people who are actually applying to jobs at this time. It is used to showcase your uniqueness to an employer and make them want to hire you over everyone else. Because of that, never, ever, ever use a template. There are lots of templates online, but they will have things that you don't need. They will not include things that you do want to have. And especially now, there might be some extra things that those templates don't have. They aren't up to date. Another thing to just remember, it takes a lot of time. A good thing now is maybe you have a little more extra time being at home, maybe you don't, but in any event, it will take time and you will have several versions of a resume throughout your job experience based on circumstances. The resume now might be different from a resume 5 years, or it will be different from a resume 5 years from now. Before you even start writing the resume, you really need to know yourself and you need to know what's expected of you. So knowing yourself, I like to call it your values, interests, personality, and skills. I'm going to talk a lot about your personality and skills, but just know that your values are what's important to you outside of the job, and your interests or your hobbies, what you like to do, because those two things do factor in to where you might want to work. But in terms of your personality and skills, those are your qualities and your attributes, as well as what you can do that really allow an employer to say, I want this person, this individual in my company. The second thing you have to know before you start writing the resume is what's expected of you. And you get that from research. It's the job description, it's the company website, it's doing networking. So knowing both of those things before you write the resume is very important. And again, this is just a basic introduction. If you make an appointment with Career Services, we can really help you flesh out what all of these things are. Another thing that's very important is to think from the employer's perspective. A lot of people think that a resume is to tell the employer everything they've ever done, and that is very true, but you need to look through the eye lens of the employer. So what is the employer going to think is important from all that you've done and all that you've learned? So the tip for that is to think about being relevant and targeted to a particular employer, which means why you might have several versions. If you're applying to different types of jobs or the job description requires different things, you want to fit to that particular company. Another thing to think about when writing resumes, use keywords and phrases of the industry or the job. That doesn't mean copying the job description exactly, but doing research again on what this type of job or what this type of company needs, values, wants, and maybe putting those kinds of words and ideas into the resume. The next thing that I would like you to be familiar with before you go on to write the resume is your hard skills and your soft skills. That's a term that career counselors use a lot. Hard skills are often those skills that people think are tangible. It is precise. It's like a language or a software or an application. And a soft skill is more of an attribute. And that's a lot of those things, professionalism skills. A hard skill is what this employer wants, and a soft skill is what every employer wants. And I'm just going to stop here for a second because I can't see anyone, but are there any questions? Does anyone want to raise a hand if they can? Wendy, can you see people on the side?
I can see everybody, and
everyone seems okay.
Yeah, so nobody
Okay.
has a question that I'm aware of.
Terrific,
I
terrific.
can use the chat function.
They can too. That's great. I just don't see anything, so I apologize. So the soft skills and the hard skills, and again, we have plenty of exercises at Career Services that help you figure out what your hard and soft skills are. A lot of you might be thinking that you don't have any skills right now, or you're really worried that they're not strong. And I guarantee you that you do have them simply by being a remote learner, simply by being in school, simply by having had a job in the past or being part of an experience on campus before. You have hard and soft skills that are going to be very, very good for an employer. So there's some more basics about resumes, and I just touched on this before, that your experiences include paid and unpaid, club and volunteer. You gain skills and experience everywhere you've been. So whether it's a volunteer experience with a YMCA, or babysitting, or nannying, or being a member of a club, or a treasurer of a club, or working at Starbucks, or having an internship. These are all places that you can gain experience. Yes?
Sarah, I just want to say there's a question. Should students, job seekers, list their remote work skills on their resume? And if so, how would you recommend doing this? And maybe you'll get to that, but I just wanted to alert you to the question.
That is the best question or for this presentation, and I am going to get to that very soon. You definitely need to put down your remote skills. That's probably one of the basics things you're going to want to really highlight, and being a remote learner is actually one of those, but I am definitely going to get to that after we talk about these more traditional aspects. So you definitely want to know how to write strong bullet points using action verbs. There's no ing or pronouns like I, me, my. We don't want to use abbreviations or sentences. We want to quantify with numbers. How many did you do of something? What results were driven by your work? And often this is from the hard skills. And you also want to qualify using descriptions and adjectives. If you're in a counseling job, you want to maybe have done work compassionately or patiently. Or if you want to go into a financial job, it might be that you do things accurately and effectively. These are all things that are going to help develop those bullet points. You also want to follow the employer's directions carefully. Do exactly what they say. If they say to include a cover letter, do that. If they say attach them separately, do that. If they ask for something specifically, do it that way. And the one thing I can't stress enough, to proofread over and over. I would even ask you to get other eyes to look at it, because you don't want mistakes of any kind, either in grammar or in content. And that goes from the top to the bottom, from your education to the last bullet point that you have. It is your first work product. So it's very, very important. So there are so many more basics that I could give you about resumes, but in this short period of time, I really wanted to go straight to the working remotely, because that's very, very important. But again, we have exercises. I can email you anything. We have worksheets that all can help you figure out what the resume basics are. So working remotely, when you want to think about that, it's how can you contribute to an office in this new working environment? Because I'm at home working right now, you are home learning right now. You may get a position that they hire you for September and they're going to be remote then, or it may be a summer position and you might get your training remotely until we open up again and people are working. So on a resume, putting that work on your resume is key. And also you have to know that when looking for a company, the company has to have the capability of working remotely. In fact, I know someone, a friend of mine, she's an accountant, and her accounting firm, which is considered essential because it has to do with taxes, but they don't have remote capabilities. So she is actually going into work every day. I guarantee you there are other accounting offices that do have remote capabilities. The ones that you really want to be looking for now are the ones that do have those abilities. So your resume needs to highlight this online experience through projects, through working remotely. We are working on Zoom now. Maybe you work with MS Teams. I'm sure there's Twitter and there's Facebook and there's Instagram. Different organizations, like Zoom is really the one that everyone knows right now, but there are an awful lot of other remote working applications. And if you can master Zoom, then you really can master other ones. So that's something to think about. Before, a few months ago, I used to think that a skills section was really best for computer science majors, perhaps fashion majors, and the science majors, because they really were working on these tangible skills, like in a lab, or they knew platforms and they knew different programs. But I really think that now a skills section or a specific highlights section can work very, very well right now. You could put down remote learner under education, and then in your skills highlights, you can say attend classes through Zoom, proficient in XYZ platform. So a little skills section higher up is going to be good. Another basic that I don't think I touched upon is that employers often look at the resume from the top to the bottom. So the most important information will be from the top to the bottom. So your education right now is going to be on top, and I probably would put your skills highlights with your remote capabilities. Yes.
There's a question. How far back do you recommend that we go on a resume when talking about previous experiences? How far back?
Great question. Again, this is one of the basics. If you're a freshman or a sophomore, maybe you can use your high school experience. But right now, an employer wants to know, what have you done lately? So really keep it in the college years if you can. And that's a great question. And that's one of the basics. Even if, oh, yes?
I'm sorry, you can keep going,
Yep.
but I apologize. Is it important to specifically list the platforms used remotely to get keyword optimization?
Yes, it is. There might be specific platforms that a company uses, and if you know that from a job description, you definitely want to put that in. But as I did explain a little bit before, there are different platforms in this new virtual environment, and one company might not be using the same one that you are, but if you were able to quickly learn and master one application, you probably will have the skills to quickly learn and master another. So definitely put the platforms that you work on. That answer things? Okay, great. Okay. So, we're working remotely, but now that we're working remotely, and we have, some hard skills that you might want to know, I want to display on there. What are some other skills that you have learned by working or studying remotely? And these are some things that you might not have thought of just a little while ago that you want to put down on a resume if possible. And again, a resume is so individual, and it does need a little more of an in-person discussion to write your own, but these are just some of the things to think about. Have you had to handle technical malfunctions and thinking on the spot? I just did. So when I had a technical malfunction, I was able to ask wonderful Wendy to help me out a little bit. Right now, in my past presentations, I have been able to see the people. Right now, I can't. So I had to think on the spot and hopefully not be too flustered and actually have this presentation despite the fact that there was a little bit of a glitch. You're also, maybe, I'm not sure of this, you will do this in an interview if you have one by Skype or by Zoom. You need to act and dress professionally outside of an office or a school setting. It's very easy to be in our sweatpants, to be in our sweatshirts, but if we're having a meeting virtually, we need to act and dress professionally. When we're not working or studying in the academic or professional environment, it might be hard to keep a schedule and meet deadlines. We have distractions. So for example, I had to put my little puppy in a separate room because previous times my puppy has done all sorts of, wagging her tail and barking. So I had to learn, if I am going to do a presentation, I need to make my surroundings feel as professional as possible. Structuring your day to maximize productivity sort of relates to that. When we're home, we have all sorts of distractions that you want to be able to tell an employer, hey, guess what? I can work even though I am not in an office setting. Speaking to a group is very different on screen versus in person. So when you're talking about communication skills that you previously might have put on a resume, those were probably person to person. But right now, maybe you're in a club and you are actually organizing an activity and you have a group where you're communicating on screen. Maybe you are meeting with a professor, or you're asking questions in a different way using the hand function here. So those are things that you want to put there. Knowing and adapting to social cues. It's much different. And keeping people engaged, it's much different from the computer screen than when you are actually in person and you can really gauge what people might be thinking from their body language. Much harder when we only see people from our head up. And working with teams is very difficult if you're not interacting in person. These are all skills that you might want to think about putting on your resume and clearly in your cover letter. Yes. Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry.
Yes.
How important is it to have your camera on in professional meetings? In your opinion, I imagine it's essential for interviews, but wondering about having your camera on for work meetings and classes.
So it's interesting you say that. This is all very new territory. So some of this is what I have been reading about right now. I believe that if you are in an office meeting, you clearly should have your computer on, which means your video on, which means making your setting professional. There are some places, like if you're in a class, for example, where there are so many people, the professor might say it's okay if your camera is not on. A lot of times it is good to have be mute because there may be distractions around you. But I think that's a great question. I think when it is a meeting where it is small and where there's a possibility to have some kind of connection and interaction, please keep your video on. If it is a larger setting, then maybe you don't need to. Great question. So those were some things to think about in addition to your regular, when you're thinking remotely, what are some things to think about? Well, these are also soft skills, competencies, and attributes and professionalism skills that are a little bit different than previously. So how do you handle and turn around a challenging situation? It's not just in the workplace. We are facing a very challenging situation right now in our world. And how do you deal with that? Employers want positivity, no negativity whatsoever. And if you can face a challenging situation by recognizing that there's an issue or a problem, but dealing with it in a positive, go get 'em kind of way, that's what employers really want. Thinking out of the box. When we were all thrust with remote learning and remote working, I think that there was a little bit of chaos going on for a short period of time. I think now we're all easing into it, but there was a lot of thinking out of the box that had to take place in order for this to be successful. So that's another attribute that's really terrific. Taking a different direction when faced with an obstacle. These are all good points that you can think about. Finding opportunities where you didn't think you had them before. Always being positive. Being willing to pitch in and contribute over and above what you thought you had to, and in a different capacity than what you thought the job description might be, is really, really important. I said previously that your job search might make you go into a little bit of a different direction than you thought because of working remotely and what's going on. That's sort of what this means. You've got to be willing to step up. If you're already there, you've got to be willing to step up and do things that you never thought you would do before. And if you're not already in a position, if you're already in a position, you want to do something over and above. If you're not there yet, maybe you're going in a different direction. Was that clear? I don't know if I made myself clear on that. And the other thing is thinking about the greater good of not only the team, but also the community in general, rather than just your individual status. Employers are really going to want to be looking for that right now. We say that there's a new reality, and there really sort of is. And we've all had to do our own individual best in order to make the goal of the whole work. So these are all things that you really can put onto your resume. There's a couple of new things to think about with resumes. We still don't use an objective because your objective really is to get the job that you're applying for. But maybe you have a resume tagline right underneath your contact information. Maybe there's a two-line phrase, a personal branding statement that outlines you and what you can contribute. So it could say remote learner involved in group club planning, seeks marketing position. So you really can put something like that, but only use it if it really does make you stand out and it's really helpful. Something very, very new and interesting is a video resume. And I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but almost 90% of employers say they would watch them, but only 17% of employers have actually viewed them. So this is a pro and a con. So you'd be unique, but that means that you'd be one of the first people out there to do this, but it also could be a con because it is very, very different. It is not like a Snapchat or an Instagram, but it's an about me. It's a short video that can leave a long-lasting impression. And it lets you be in control of what information you put out there, so it can highlight your creativity, and it might be really terrific for certain majors. On the other hand, you don't want to be too out there or too personal. And remember, it can be replayed and picked apart, so it needs to be as good as it can be. And it could be almost a first interview, because now we are so far apart right now. A video resume could be the first place that they really get to see your face and really understand that how your personality shines. And this should be added to your LinkedIn profile if you have one, and I hope you do. Yes.
Question is, somebody has not had a chance to look at the CSER's handouts yet this term. Do you know if any of our handouts have sample resumes with these remote learning skills already on them? Have we built one, and is it available?
Believe it or not, it is something that I am working on right now, these remote skills, and that's exactly what I am working on right now. But please email me. My email is sfalber@framingham.edu, and I will be happy to send you information on all of these things. And hopefully I will have that sooner rather than later. So the other thing about the video resume, you need to remember it's going to be there forever. So it needs to be as professional as it can possibly be and with a lot of care. Know how to use the technology. This is not the time to have any flub ups. You'll be able to do it on your own. So just make sure that you know how to use the technology. It still does not replace a traditional resume or a cover letter or the interview. And right now, I don't know of companies who say, we would like a video resume. That might be something that you either do research on, you can request it in an email. You can say, do you allow for video resumes? It could be something that you put on your LinkedIn, as I say, and employers always looked at LinkedIn profiles, and if you have a video resume there, they're likely to look at it. So your tone, your vibe, your voice, your head to toe look are all important, and know your audience for this. So what works for one type of company might not work for another. So just make sure that your video resume is appropriate. So to conclude, be prepared and anticipate delays in hiring and the hiring process, because people might not know when they're opening again. So scheduling might be a little bit different, as well as for interviews and things like that. Be patient and follow up as long as you don't become a bother. Employers want people who really want the job. So if you are someone who can send in a resume, and then maybe in a week you can maybe follow up. If you're lucky enough to get an interview, then please follow up after an interview and ask them if they need anything more, and say how much you're really interested in the position still. know how to draft professional emails and cover letters. You know, a resume isn't all that you're going to be providing now. And remain control of what you can control. This is hard and sometimes overwhelming for us all. And try to stay calm and try to take it one day at a time. And, you know, you can do what you can do. These are a couple of places, Flex Jobs and We Work Remotely are places that are hiring now, but there's a few other sites to check out. And again, I'll leave this up for a little while, and this is recorded, this presentation is recorded. And I also, if you want to email me and ask me to send you this, I can do that as well. But so that's what I have on resumes in a virtual world. Yes.
Do you want to unmute everybody maybe? And then if anybody has a question, they could certainly answer you.
Yes, I didn't know that let me see. I'm going to stop the share right now and see if I can get in to see everybody. Here we are. And if I go to manage participants, I am unmuting all. All participants are unmuted. I only see 4 people. Do I see 4 people? So does anybody have a question?
Hi, Sarah. This is Diana, the one without the camera. Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Uh-huh.
I just want to say thank you for the presentation. It was very helpful. You guys can't see me now because I'm kind of bedridden and super sick.
Oh, no.
That was a little bit of a mess. Yes, but thank you so much for the presentation. It was very helpful.
Oh, you're very welcome. Email me if you have any questions.
I put Sarah's email in the chat. So if anybody needs it, it's in the chat, Sarah's email.
Okay, thank you. I just had a quick question. If I do have a resume draft, is it okay if I send you a version so you can help me?
Not only can you send me the version, but you can also schedule an appointment through Starfish, and we can set up our own Zoom meeting to go and have a virtual appointment. But I am definitely taking resumes through email, and we can chat that way.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Oh, does Wendy have something else to say?
Some students have been having a problem making appointments through Starfish because what I've learned through IT is that if you're working from home and you don't shut down your computer and reboot periodically, Starfish stops working. So if you have a problem actually making the appointment, it says all appointments are taken, which is not true. Shut off your computer, reboot. All else fails, call me at the main number at Career Services, which is listed everywhere, and I'm happy to make the appointment for you through Starfish. That's it.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Sarah.
Cindy, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just a quick question. You'd lower my hand. I saw that you were recording this session. Are those going to be placed? I haven't recorded and placed things really yet from my classes, but will that be available on the website, or what are the plans to do? What are you going to be doing with the recording, I guess, is my question.
Wendy?
Yeah, sure, Cindy. Thank you. It's going to both be on our website. It's definitely, there's going to be links to all of them. And in fact, we were editing them because we had a little pre and post stuff we had to go. So it should be up there very soon. And then some of them will be posted, or all of them will be posted on our YouTube channel as well through Career Services YouTube.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if that's it, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Nice to see
Sarah.
everybody, especially Cindy. Nice to see you.
It was great.
You're welcome. Some of my students went to yesterday's session too, and Theana, I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Be well, everybody. Stay safe. Thank you. Thanks,
Take care,
Sarah.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.